Today I'm just playing around with some television equipment, that is equipment that some of which was designed for the old TV, the old NTSC, and some which was designed for the newer ATSC. This all started because a few days ago I was trying to hook up a television and a recorder for my granddaughter and another one for her mom, and I was trying to use this antenna and it just didn't work very well. And I remember this as being a pretty good antenna, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I wound up bringing it back and working on it. It turns out it had an intermittent inside that I'll talk more about later. What I have here is a peak hold trace at the top and then a clear right trace at the bottom. And the difference between the two, it's basically the FM band. The center frequency is about 95 or so megahertz, I think. It'll focus. Yeah, center 94.6, call it 95 megahertz for the center frequency. And what I'm testing is the effectiveness of an FM trap that I bought from MCM Electronics. It's upside down there, but turn it over this way, you might be able to read it. And the scales are the same for both traces. So, in other words, if you align the bottom of this trace with the noise level of this trace, you'll see that basically the FM trap cut the signals by about half, or maybe a little more. But remember, this is a logarithmic scale, so half means substantial reduction in the actual signal amplitude in microvolts, for example. But nonetheless, it gives you an idea. We have an FM station down here, several in the middle, and a couple near the high end of the band. And it gives you an idea of the effectiveness of this FM trap. And the reason that I wanted to test this is, in the particular place I was trying to install this antenna, there were a lot of FM antennas, broadcasting antennas, within just a mile or two. And so I wanted to see if something like this might reduce the intermod and some other things. This is not the best way to test these sorts of things, and in a minute I'll probably go over on the Rigol, which has a tracking generator and actually generate the frequency characteristics. But I basically wanted to show you that. And now the next thing is, I also was playing around with the TV frequencies. That is, the frequencies from the old channel 7 up to what today I think is channel 50 or 51 in the UHF band. So let me set up to show you that. Another way to show somewhat the same thing, this is a scan of the full FM band with 88 on the left and 108 on the right. And this is without the FM trap in the line. Now, I hasten to point out that I've got a lot of pretty kludgy arrangement here. What I'm doing is I'm splitting the signal through a 3.5 dB splitter. That is, each signal is down 3.5 dB. One of those I'm feeding through the FM trap, and the other is going straight to the analyzer, but they're both going through a switch. So this is the straight through position, and that is with the FM trap in place. Once again, straight through FM trap. Now, the reason I've set this up is not primarily because I was interested in attenuating FM signals particularly. I was interested in the performance of this antenna up in the VHF, high VHF, and low UHF bands, where the ATSC signals, that is the new digital television signals are. By new, they've been around since I think 2008 or 2009, but for some people they're new. But at any rate, it's the newest of the television formats. So now let's go up there and look at what this filter does in those bands. Now you see the signal between 170 and 190 megahertz. The signal you see here is a local TV channel. This is channel 7, which operates between, well, it has a lower edge of 174 megahertz and an upper edge of 180 megahertz, which is the center. So you see it's within its frequency band. And the video carrier is at 175.25, which is right about in here. So once again, this is the straight through picture. And this is the picture with the FM trap inserted. You may notice it has virtually no effect. Once again, this is the trap. This is the straight through signal. You notice when I switch it, sometimes there's a little perturbation while it's switching. This is a really simple switch I'm using. It's not a complicated switch, and I don't have the impedances matched or anything like that. So this is more or less a kind of cut and try kludge, but nonetheless it gives you an idea that at that frequency it has no effect. So now let's go up and look in the UHF band. Here is the UHF, or a portion of the UHF band. I'm basically scanning from 500 megahertz on the left to 800 megahertz on the right. I'm sorry, 700 megahertz on the right. The channels that you see, this is a combination transmitter, that is, it's duplexed on the old UHF channels 21 and 22. The next one up is this little signal here, which is on channel 31, UHF channel 31, and then UHF channel 33. The next one is UHF channel 36. There is a signal here which I'm not sure that I know which one that is. This one is channel 43, I believe. And the top of the band will be around 50. Will be around channel 51 or 52. Now, as you may know, the channel numbers that you see on your TV are not the same as the UHF channel numbers. The VHF signal that we saw earlier, channel 7, that usually shows up as channel 7 on your TV, but the others do not. For example, these channels on my TV show up as 24 and 18, then 14, 24, 31, 42, I'm sorry, 36 and 42. So they're nowhere near the correct UHF channel numbers, and if you've ever had to try to do a manual scan on a digital TV, you know that if you don't know the right channel numbers, and by the way, you can print tables like this out at the Wikipedia site. Here's a little better look at the frequency table. You may notice that at the very top there is the first one that I was using, channel 7, with the frequencies and so on. The second page is here. As I said, you can print these sort of things out at Wikipedia. There's also a site on the web where you can spot the channels in your area geographically, and they're channel numbers and the approximate distance they can reach and so on. So the last thing I want to do is, because I'm just playing around here, is I'm going to show you kind of what I was doing on this antenna to try to determine what the optimum settings were after I repaired it. Here is the antenna right here. It's made by GE. It consists of two wings that have UHF antennas in them, and then a single dipole in the center that's collapsible, that's used for the VHF frequencies. And what I'm doing is I'm switching it through this little switch box down here to show the difference between the FM trap and non. So now let's look at that. Once again, this is the signal without the FM trap. When I insert the FM trap, which is now, you see very little difference. I can see virtually none, although I will admit that this signal seems to actually get better. There's the FM trap on. Well, maybe it's just my eyes. Maybe I saw something that I wanted to see instead of what's really there. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to adjust the height of the antenna, and what I'll do is I'll slide it over so that it's in the field here. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the antenna up to its full length, and you'll see that it has some effect on the signals. My recollection is some of the taller signals are around 49 dB down at this point. Now I'm going to collapse it one section. And you'll notice that this signal kind of disappeared until I put my hand up here. Now I'm going to take my hand away, and you see it drops off. Now I'm going to lower it one more. What I found was that, at least in this one location with this particular configuration, mismatched into the spectrum analyzer, it's a 50 ohm spectrum analyzer, this is all 75 ohm equipment and so on, that this setting, that is a setting which is collapsed, the first two sections are collapsed on the dipole, produced the best overall response. And the main reason was that it gave me the strongest channel 7 without degrading the UHF reception. So I don't know if this kind of thing is very interesting to anyone, but what I'm going to do at some point, maybe another one of these having fun on a Sunday kind of videos, is look at some other television equipment and what its effect is on especially digital television signals and FM signals, because I have a whole collection of amplifiers, switchers, traps, and so on that I've collected over the years, some of which were a waste of money, some seem to work, some probably are now broken. So anyway, some Sunday I'll get them out and look them over and maybe do a little bit of having fun with video. But at any rate, hope you enjoyed this. I'm trying to make a few short videos now and then just of things I'm having fun with, and this is the first one. I can't promise when the next one will be, but I hope you enjoyed this one.